I'm Dr. Rick Kelly, and I've been thinking. First, all medical decisions should be made between the patient or their legal guardian and their doctor by those who know the particulars of a person's health issues and can make the proper choice in their cases. So I'm not giving advice in this video. But I am giving some of the reasons behind my personal decision regarding boosters at this time in 2022. If you feel you should or shouldn't get a booster, please consult your doctor. Number one, we have zero clinical patient data with the new bivalent mRNA vaccines. Are they safe long-term or in repeated doses? Who knows? You say, but Dr. Kelly, the FDA Vaccine Advisory Panel looked at the antibody data from Pfizer and Moderna and decided that it was enough to go forward with the new boosters. I'm aware of that, but they did that without the usual studies that show the safety and efficacy of the vaccine. If you watched my earlier video on immunobridging, I explained how the FDA used proxy data to allow the approval, not patient data, only test tube data. I follow the news and the medical information on COVID more than some, and I'm sure less than others. I tried to gather the best medical information and advice for my patients at the time when the medical authorities were not very helpful. They only said, if you have COVID, stay home, stay hydrated, isolate yourselves, then go to the hospital if you get sick enough. We also saw how authorities who we were supposed to trust gave other information that turned out to be false, or at least not helpful. You know the story, the masks, the shutdowns, saying the shots were better and longer lasting than natural immunity. They refused to allow novel approaches to treatments from frontline doctors who wanted to save lives. There are others, and you know them as well as I do. And when they say, trust us, if we don't do X, then Y and Z will happen, I don't buy it. Call me a skeptic, but trust needs to be earned when lost. Next, the dynamic of COVID infections has changed since it first came from China, at least for Americans. Most everyone either has natural immunity from COVID, has been vaccinated, then likely got COVID on top of that, or has an immune system that's strong enough to fight off the virus. The CDC and the FDA are acting like we are still in the fall of 2020 when they granted emergency use on the first shots. Today, in December of 2022, our risk of COVID in the U.S. is less than that. We had a family friend die from COVID very recently. I get it, but it's a different dynamic than 2 years ago. Next, is there evidence that the bivalent shot is more or less safe than the original shot? I've looked and can't find out one way or the other. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has strict rules about drug companies claiming something that has not been proven. Does it reduce the risk of getting sick, hospitalized, or dying from COVID? I hope so, but they were authorized without that information. There are no studies proving it one way or the other. They are telling us that based on antibody data, the new shots are fine and good. But I remember in the fall of 2021, just last year, when people were losing their jobs because they refused the jab, even when they had natural immunity from previous infection. The same protective antibodies that weren't good enough then are suddenly good enough now to get approval for the boosters. Also, the COVID jabs are more reactogenic than flu shots. I know a few people that don't do well with flu shots due to reactogenicity, but as a rule, most people get a flu shot and don't even bat an eye. On the other hand, people usually have a significant reaction to the COVID jabs. Not only the sore shoulder, but they often get fever, chills, body aches, headaches, and many have to take a day off work. That's not the same with flu shots. And let me bounce back to September the 9th of this year when Dr. Robert Califf, the commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration, said this on Twitter. He said, and I quote, "Being vaccinated and boosted reduces your risk of dying or getting critically ill and going to the hospital." Assuming he's talking about COVID-19 vaccines, then the first sentence is okay. He doesn't state that they're better than natural immunity or say anything about adverse events, but I understand. I'm aware of the Twitter character limits. But he goes on to say, the updated booster also increases your chances of being in attendance in upcoming gatherings with your family and friends. This second sentence is not good because there is no scientific evidence that these boosters prevent you from getting sick with COVID or passing it on to family and friends. We hope that it does, but as a high-level government official, he should not be making statements like this. If Big Pharma had said the same thing, they could be subject to a $1 billion fine for making false and misleading statements about a drug. So Dr. Califf essentially makes misleading statements for Big Pharma like their advertising agent and no restrictions or regulations. Is that a crime? I doubt it, but I don't believe it's ethical. So I had to ask myself, is getting another booster necessary? Or to put it another way, do I know that the theoretical benefits for me outweigh the known and unknown risks? The authorities say they know the benefits even without data, which means we just have to trust them. And when it comes to the new bivalent messenger RNA vaccines, mRNA vaccines, to be honest, no one knows what the adverse events will be after 5 or 10 or 15 shots. We don't have experience yet showing their long-term safety profile. Besides, even after being fully vaccinated and boosted, I still caught COVID a few months ago. Thankfully, my illness was mild and brief. Do I buy the mantra that it's just another flu shot? No. The flu vaccine, which have varying effectiveness, are made using the top 3 or 4 flu variants circulating on the opposite side of the world during the 6 months before the year's shots come out. It contains flu strains that we haven't experienced recently. They are not always very effective. We all know that, but at least they are being proactive. The new bivalent boosters contain equal amounts of the original Wuhan viral strain and the BA4 and 5 strains, but not the BQ subvariants that are now dominant in the United States. So will any of the variants that are in the booster be predominant again? It's very unlikely. We're being offered shots for the previous strains, and as some may say, that ship has already sailed. So in December 2022, I'll stack my Omicron immunity and B and T cell response against anyone's bivalent booster immunity, and I'm in good company with many others who made the same choice. As a doctor, I greatly respect many of my colleagues and mentors and the sacrifice that many have made and will make on behalf of their patients. But also, as someone who studies history, the history of science and medicine is rife with universally accepted teachings that we now know are false. And just as we've gotten things wrong in the past, it's plain to see that predicting what will happen in the future with this virus is like predicting the weather or the stock market. However well-meaning they are, no one, the experts included, really knows. I'm sorry that some of the things I took as true in the beginning of COVID and passed on to my patients turned out to be false. I don't want that to happen in the future. I don't promise I'll always be right, but I'll do the best I can to be honest in the information that I give. Thank you for watching, and God bless.